Yeah, it's Andrea, the Astro Tracker. And I was just thinking about some of my dear friends who've been having some problems lately. And so I wanted to share with you the story of Janelle, who is someone who called me not too long ago as a whole bunch of planets were going through Cancer and Leo. She's a Cancer and her husband is a Leo. And so all these things were happening. And so hadn't heard from her a while. She gave me a call. And she was feeling kind of like she was in a fog. Um, well, and in the fog, her ship was wrecked. That's how she felt, wrecked. She felt like she was going down, like her life was going down. Now, she and her husband were older than the folks in this picture. But if you look at the looks on their faces, that's exactly how she was sounding to me, is extremely worried, extremely dismayed. Because what had happened is one of her kids, who had a completely different viewpoint in life, had basically abandoned she and her husband, her and her husband, would be correct, by the way, her and her husband, um, several years ago. And she was reaching out to me to find out if she was ever going to get him back. Um, he is someone who did choose a different lifestyle. I did talk to her about what was going on, and had she and her husband um, made him feel any less loved or rejected him for his lifestyle. And she said no. Um, I do know her. I know she is a very lovable person. Like I said, a Cancer. Cancers are typically love bugs, very emotional. Her husband is a Leo. Um, you know, when they're at their best, they're a lovable Leo, what I call a lovable Leo. But there are some Leos that are not so nice. But I know her. I'd met her husband. He was a nice guy. Anyway, she was wanting to know, will I ever see my son again? What can I do? Um, well, I'll show you a typical chart later of what was going on with her son. And what I wanted her to know was that it really, you know, it was a number of things that was going on with her. Now, she felt like this, the little teddy bear staring off into a barren land that's cold, cold and empty. She had felt that the childhood of, of her kids had been good, that her son had been happy. Um, and she didn't know why he didn't even want to talk to her anymore. And as you know, this is happening to a lot of people. It's been on the news quite a bit about kids leaving their parents behind and not wanting to talk to them. But Janelle needed some hope. She needed to know that in this barren landscape where her son hadn't spoken to her for several years. And by the way, neither had I, and I hadn't spoken to her either. She was reaching out because she just couldn't stand it anymore. And she thought maybe I could give her some hope. And a lot of times that is what astrologers do. We give people hope. We give them confirmation sometimes that they're not crazy. Um, on occasion, I do tell people that they need to stop doing something right away because it's dangerous. Doesn't happen that often, but it has happened. In this case, I know she's a lovely lady, her husband's a lovely guy. And as you know, all people are, you know, affected by their childhoods, even if you have a good childhood. Somehow we as little kids find the weird thing to pull out and either blame ourselves for or blame our parents for or something like that. It could be something small, could be something big. I'm not minimizing people who do have big problems. But all Janelle wanted was to be able to hold her son's hand again, um, to be able to talk to him, to maybe have a Christmas or two with him. And he was not responding at all. So she came to me. So as you know, what I use is astrology. And what I do is I take a snapshot of where the stars are in the heavens at the time of someone's birth. And that is what I call their bingo card. And this is what it looks like. Your life plan is in the stars. It is written there. I can look at this chart, which, by the way, is nobody in particular that I know of. I just found a chart. Um, but if this were a person, I could tell you exactly what they would be like. For example, this person would be serious person, Capricorn, creative with making money, maybe doing so via the internet, IT, someone with a responsible job, but also has a lot of friends. By the way, this has a Cancer Capricorn. This chart has a Cancer Capricorn flavor to it. Leo rising. This is the lovable Leo. Mars and Virgo makes a person able to get a whole bunch of stuff done at once. A lot of trines in here too. So, and emotional, especially with family and friends. So that's what this person would be like if this were a real person. And somewhere on Earth, there is a person who has this chart, but only one. Nobody else has your chart. So anyway, look at it. And so that's what I was doing. I was going to look for her to be able to tell her, was she going to be able to see her son again? And what was going to be the future for her husband and herself? They wanted to have a happy, older age, but this thing had been tearing them up inside. And so, sometimes astrologers are here to give hope and to let you know what's what. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Now, one of the issues um, that did happen, um, that, I do have to say, I had to tell her the truth, which the truth is that the kid is mad. The kid is mad. I'm going to show you this now, too. We'll share this picture. This is not the kid, but why am I not finding this? Okay, try this again. Yep, sometimes things mess up. Oh, there it is. Sometimes things mess up. Okay. So this is actually, believe it or not, this is Pete Davidson. And it turns out that Janelle's son was born in the early 90s. And early 90s kids, who, as we know, really aren't kids anymore, have issues. Now, I'm not saying other kids don't have issues. I do. By the way, look at all of this stuff all glommed up. Remember what I talked about when I was talking about Barno's basket or Bo's basket and how he said when planets get all glommed up, there can be issues. um, yeah, that's part of it with him. There are a couple things in this chart that indicate some of the things that Pete Davidson has gone through. But when I looked at this, the one thing the early 90s kids had this Neptune and Uranus together in Capricorn. Um, Capricorn is a rough sign. It, if you have it as a sun sign or as a rising sign, which, that's where the sun was rising at, on the ecliptic at the moment that you're born. If you have that, you can have a rough childhood. And sometimes it's just a lot of responsibility, but other times it's literally a really rough childhood. Maybe not much money in the family, maybe you having to work at an early age and things like that. So good news. Here's good news though, Capricorns, old when young, young when old. So the promise of Capricorn is that when they get older, they can actually play. They can actually have a good time. They can party when they get older, but they paid for it. They paid their dues. Anyway, these early 90s kids have Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn. So we already know that's kind of challenging. We got Neptune there. Neptune is the I don't know. Uranus is the unexpected. And what really tipped me off to the issue with the early 90s kids is like when Pete Davidson tried to kill himself, here's a guy who's got everything. He's got everything. Yes, he's got Pluto with the sun. That's another issue. Well, it's connected. It's connected. But anyway, he's on top of the world and he tries to kill himself. Okay. So there was that one. And then there was Selena Gomez, had lupus. And she also is an early 90s kid. So, in other words, she's got a very serious illness. And so I went and looked up their birthdays, and this is what I saw. And I began to realize this pattern. This is what astrologers do. We recognize patterns over and over again based on the placement of certain planets. So anytime I get someone who's got an early 90s birthday or a parent who's got a child they don't understand who has early 90s birthday, who, as I said, isn't a child anymore, um, usually I know there's something going on with them where they just don't understand what's happening to them or they did not expect for it to be happening at all. Then the unexpected happens. And sometimes it's the reverse because Selena, actually, her chart is the opposite one. So I'll show you that one. Okay. Share. This is Selena. I mean, this is, yeah, Selena Gomez. So you can see she has the same thing over here, only she has the unexpected first, and then she has the I don't know. So, in other words, something unexpected happens to her, and then she doesn't know what to do about it. So, this is something that's very common with those kids. And by the way, look at her Leo rising. A lot of stars have Leo rising, Leo, and that's why all this Leo stuff that's happening here this summer is going to really blow a bunch, blow a lot of things kind of out of proportion. I've talked about we may lose some people who we love on the large stage, so celebrities, we may lose some leaders, things like that. That's already kind of been happening, but we're not even there yet because we haven't even hit the solar eclipse. But anyway, so just so you can see these two plans together, it's a cue for me that something's going on. And that was what was happening with Janelle. And so I, first of all, told her that, and by the way, the kid was born with that. The kid came in with that. So if you want to use astrology as a scapegoat, you can. You can say, oh, it's the stars. It's not me. It isn't me. It isn't me. But, then there's always question, which is the question that I always ask, why? Why would someone come in with this to experience this? Well, of course, the answer is always for us to learn from it and to adapt. And so some people adapt. Pete Davidson made it. Other people don't adapt and they don't make it. So Robin Williams. However, I am a firm believer that in that circumstance, it also showed in another way. He didn't have that, but he had something else in his chart that was showing like a dark cloud over him, but that if he had hung on for a certain amount of time, the dark cloud would have gone away. And what he really just needed was someone to hold his hand the whole dang time. And apparently there wasn't someone there the whole day, the whole darn time. There needed to be. But anyway, and astrology does show that. So I was able to tell Janelle what was, not exactly what was going on with her son, but, when he could be expected to reach back out to her. And honest truth is that it might still be a while. But he may do so through one of their other kids, um, because he's still in contact with some of the other kids in the family. And so, but I just, told her just keep sending him love, keep sending him birthday cards, keep sending him Christmas cards, whatever, keep sending him, and make sure that he knows that he's loved and that you welcome him back anytime that he wants to come back because you still love him. That's the big thing, right? Here's what's the real solution to everything, you guys. It's love, right? Love, forgiveness, gratefulness. These are the things that are the solutions to everything. Anyway, so I was able to tell her when to expect that. And so that meant that she and her husband could get on with their life. They could wait without waiting. They could go on with their life and wait without waiting. They could, they could go on their trips where they wanted to go. They could feel okay. Because the other thing is that this was in his chart. It had nothing to do with something that she had done or that he had done or whatever. Um, he came in like this. We come in, there's some kids who come in, fighting and fighting mad. And then there's others who come in who are kind of, like that's kind of me. I came in kind of uh, easy breezy, flexible, changeable. Somebody could hit me in the face and I wouldn't do anything. However, one of my brothers would have punched him back, right? So we come in with certain personality traits. So I was a pacifist from day one. I was not even going to fight. I do turn the other cheek. I literally turn the other cheek. Um, and I don't know that it's because I'm holy or anything. I think it's because I don't know. It's just not in me to fight like that. But you know that there are some kids that do have it. They're not going to let that stuff happen to them. And so, I admire the boundary setting that is there. Um, and like I said, it shows up in people's charts. And so I was able to talk to her about that. What were the reasons why the kid was acting that way? Some of it was karmic. So some of you may not believe in that, but anyway, it was showing up that it was karmic and that there were some issues from the past that had to be dealt with that did not have to do with her as a mother. She and the kid had come to her and her husband to experience the lovable thing, because the kid didn't feel lovable himself. That's really the issue. And a lot of times, that's what they teach when you go to a therapist. You got to learn how to love yourself first. It's kind of like putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. You got to heal yourself first before you can work with other people, right? Before you can deal with other people. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. This is what astrology is about. I can either teach you in an easy way to learn astrology, basics that could help you deconstruct your chart if you wanted to do something like that. Otherwise, I can actually just do a consultation with you if you want to invest in that with me. Um, so check it out. You can write to me at booklady@astrotracker.com, or you can find me on my website at astrotracker.com. Um, and maybe astrology will be the thing that can help you out, because I know that I have helped a lot of people get peace and solace and confirmation. Um, and it makes life easier if you know, like this lady, she won't be suffering tomorrow, waiting impatiently for her son to call her tomorrow. She can go and live her life with her husband. And then when the time comes, when the time is right, the kid will come back. So she just needed that reassurance. That's what I'm here for. Love you, dears. Bye.